The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Dr. Paul Ross and his amazing foot cream. Amazing doctor, amazing cream. Give your feet the very best with Dr. Ross's amazing foot cream. He's a former national championship winning football coach. She's a world-renowned clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and relationship expert. Together, they make an unbeatable team. It's now time for the Sports Love Life Show. Let's join Jamie King and Dr. Judy Ho.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sports 11 Live Show. And tonight we have a very special guest and his beautiful daughter. It's Joe Moglia. Of course, I work with Joe on the Joe Moglia Report on radio and ESPN, and his lovely daughter, Kimberly, has been so kind to join us tonight. We're going to hear a lot of, hopefully, some dirt on Joe, maybe something behind the scenes. She'll give us some tips or something about him that we're going to learn tonight. We're excited to have you both. Welcome to the Sports 11 Live Show.
Thank you.
Happy to be on, Jamie.
Well, Coach, I'm probably one of your biggest fans. And when I look at you as a former coach myself, I don't know how you do what you do. And folks that are familiar with Coach know everything he's done. And those that don't understand that when I say Renaissance man, I don't think that even begins to scratch the surface. I don't understand in one person how you can do what you do. And when I look at things in terms of goals and trying to achieve great things, I look at you and I say, wait a minute, I haven't done anything. Look at this guy, championship coach at the Division I level. You've done more record-breaking deals in finance than anybody I've ever met in my life and seen on television. When you look at totality, what you've done, and you're still humming along, how do you do it all? And is it something where you just said, hey, from a standpoint of your goals early on, you felt that nothing was out of your reach?
First of all, Jamie, I don't know if you've met anybody else in finance other than I. So there are other people that have done better deals than I have. I think the reality is, and one of the things that I've always found very, very important in my life, and this is something that I try to teach my daughters and my son and my stepsons about, and my players, et cetera, and that is, it's critical to do something in your life that you really enjoy. So I think there are two things that you need to understand. What are the skill sets required to do a particular function? And then do you really, truly have those skill sets? And if you do, you still have to ask yourself one more question. Is this something you could be passionate about? If the answer to both of those things are yes, then you've got a competitive advantage in that particular field. I've been fortunate enough, probably many other countries, I wouldn't have this opportunity, but I've been fortunate enough to have both the skill sets and the passion to do the two things that I have done from a career perspective.
Kimberly, when you look at your dad, I grew up without a father. And when I look at your dad, I just shake my head. It's like, what would I have been and what could I have done to learn from him? Can you speak to you and your 5 siblings in terms of all of the great things you've seen him accomplish and what he's meant to you in terms of that role model as far as your life and your siblings' life in terms of all the things you've taken from him through your journey?
That's a really big question. There's a lot of layers there, but yeah, sure. I would say the thing that I, as his daughter, look up to him most for is a commitment. So he'll choose something, and it could be anything. It could be writing a speech or a career endeavor or playing a game. It goes to anything. He's very competitive. And he won't tackle a situation if he doesn't feel that he can really succeed in it, but he really always does succeed in it. And I think it's just a real commitment, focus, drive, and also creating a good team around him and knowing which things he should focus his time on and which things other people around him might be better suited for. But that's been something I think that everyone in our family or other people that know him really admire about him.
Jamie, may I add? Is it okay if I add to that?
Sure.
Okay, so as you well know, my leadership philosophy, BAM, is something that I've had with me my entire life. Now, just in the last 12 years, we call it BAM because they've got 125 male athletes, another 25 male coaches, interns, analysts, et cetera, 150 guys. So being man works there, but it's not, BAM is really an acronym for leadership. And my family was raised on that. You stand on your own 2 feet, you take responsibility for yourself. You always treat others with dignity and respect, and you live with the consequences of your actions. That's also the foundation upon which I fail times, but I try to live my own life. And it's the entire foundation upon which I built my coaching career as well as my business career. And that's something I think in terms of Kim talks about commitment. And a big part of that commitment is just taking responsibility for yourselves. Too many people just don't do that.
When you look at your father, Kim, and you look at all the things he's done, football coach, of course, legendary things he's done in the finance world, it's just, to me, so shocking in terms of all the great things he does. It's like, what's he going to do next? When you look at him and your siblings look at him,
here it comes. Is
it something where you accept it, or you just say, that's just dad, it's just the way he's built, or is it something where, does he ever surprise you?
Well, I'm not surprised by success. And when I mean success, just whatever he's trying to accomplish in the moment. I know this might not sound very humble, but I'm actually really sure that he is going to succeed in whatever he tries to do. Like, I just know that about him, that he will accomplish whatever he's setting out to do. What I think is interesting is that if this is all you know, this is what you grow up with, and this is what you have your whole life, this is just who my dad is. But where I feel like some other people have been surprised that I think his children haven't is, when he went from his football career into a finance career and then back into football, this is a little different depending on which sibling you speak to, because given our ages, we have different perspectives. So the youngest one doesn't remember really the football games that my older sister and I do. But I'm the second, so I do have a very vivid memory of my childhood going to all of these games, the Lafayette, Dartmouth, and all of those moments. So when he returned to football, I feel like a lot of people in our life at that time who only knew him as a person in finance was very much like, can you believe this? Like, look at him on the field. This is like so crazy. And to us, it didn't feel crazy at all. It felt like almost like a coming home. I'm like, no, that's my dad. The finance stuff seemed crazy to me. Like, now he's like back to his roots, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And as I say, growing up without a father, when you look at him as a dad, what are the things in terms of growing up that you most remember about him that you always carry with you about him and the man himself, away from the football, away from the finance? What are those things that you always cherish about your dad?
Well, I think one of the things I cherish most about my dad, especially now that I'm a mother myself, is when I look back, and I grew up in the 70s, I'm 48 now, the way that my father treated his daughters as opposed to his son. You might think that, back in the 70s, it was very much like maybe the boy getting favored or something. But it really wasn't like that. My father really instilled in my sisters and I just this whole idea that we were just as smart, we were just as strong, we were just as tough, and we could do whatever we wanted in the world, regardless of whether we were male or female. And I can really see the impact that had on all of us, because we're all pretty tough women. And I think it really came from that. And if I had to just pick one thing, I'd probably feel like I'm most appreciative for that.
All right. And Coach, as a former head coach at Coastal Carolina, you had 100 plus student athletes under your watch. Did you take the things you learned from your mom and dad, the BAM philosophy, was that something you incorporated on your own, or did you take that from your childhood, from your upbringing, and then basically carry that on? Or was that something you just wanted to start on your own? Or was it something that you basically inherited and carried through from the upbringing that you had?
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by The Nerve Company. Never underestimate radical vision. It takes nervy to be a company this great. What does Jamie King think about that? We'll find out next on Sports Love Life.
I mean, there are certainly many things, both positively and negatively. And that's also true for Kim, that, it was part of my life growing up that I learned in terms of what to do and what not to do from my mom and my dad. And they certainly, I think, were my greatest teachers. I'm asked a lot, like, is there somebody that you follow you give credit to? I would give credit to my mom and dad. I don't mean that as a cliche. I would really do that. But then when I became a father, my whole life changed. And this whole idea of taking responsibility for yourself, I think you're aware of the story. I'm a teenager. And my dad thought I should drop out of college. He thought I shouldn't go to college. And that way I could work with him in his fruit store. Dad was an Italian immigrant, never finished 8th grade. And he sold bananas and apples in the Bronx his entire life. And I worked for him from the time he was 10 to the time he was 22. So, but I realized then, and I very much thought ahead in terms of, I had to support my daughter, Kelly. I had to support my wife, Kathy. We were going to have more children. We knew that. And is my family better off if I worked for my father the rest of my life in the fruit store, if I figured out a way to go to college? And I figured out a way to go to college. And my dad actually told me I was making a big mistake. So I think, so it was then in the beginning when I thought I wanted to go to Wall Street, but I began coaching in an effort to help finance my college education. And I also drove a truck for the post office in New York City. I drove a taxi cab in New York City. And I worked for my father, and I coached football. So I really love the football piece. And go back to what I said in the beginning, is there something that you think you have the skill sets for? I thought I did. And the passion for it, I did. So if I could get a head high school job upon graduating, I'd try to pursue that. That happened at Archburg Academy, by the way, which is the same school that President Biden had gone to. And at that time, at that moment in time, it was so very, very critical for us. It was so very critical for us to be able to have a philosophy upon which to build. Why am I doing this? And it's literally, when I was 22 years old, it was actually before Kim was even born, in writing at my very first high school, this is about growing up and becoming a man or a real woman or a real leader. Standing on your own 2 feet, you take responsibility for yourself. You treat others with dignity and respect, you live the consequences of your actions. And that has been part of my life since I have been a father. So that's been with me for 5 decades.
When you look at your career as a finance guy, as a coach, some people live an entire life and can say, I was a great coach at a D1 level and rest on those laurels and ride off in the sunset and be very successful in doing it. You've done that, record-breaking deals on the finance side. It's one of those things with you was it something where you said, okay, I climbed this mountain, I'm going to climb this mountain? How did you decompartmentalize each aspect, football, the finance, and back to football again, and do that with the same intensity and the same drive and commitment to success? How did you do that? How did you navigate it? Where some people would only do one thing in their life, you've mastered several and you're still mastering more. How did you approach that?
Well, Jamie, I think earlier on, frankly, I think Kim wound up saying this, where she said, my dad's not going to do something because he understands himself well enough. He's not going to do something that he can't do, that he can't do well, that he's not going to be at least reasonably successful at. And that's certainly been the case. So there were reasons, they were very much real family reasons. In order to support my family, I had to give up my football career and go to Wall Street. Wall Street turned out to be pretty good. Then eventually when I stepped down, I had a chance to go back. And so I'm not that talented, but I've only picked the 2 things in my life I think I would have been good at, coaching and the business world. And if I picked something else, I may very well fail. But I really did pick the things that I knew I had skill sets for, and I knew I was really going to be passionate about. And I think as I go forward, what's always moved me is the impact you have on others, whether it's my family, whether it's my loved ones, whether it's people, my players or my coaches or people in the business world. And that's still important to me going forward. What I no longer want going forward is the intense responsibility of everything on my shoulder. So instead of having a mountain to climb, I've got little baby hills, and I know I can get over those little baby hills. So I'll be okay that way.
All right. Kim, from a standpoint of Joe as a dad and Joe as a person. Can you tell us some things? We know on the surface what he's done and all the success, but tell us some things we may not know about your dad. This is the part you've been dreading, Joe. I'm going to let it all out now. Go ahead, Kim. Please fire away.
Well, you could probably assume that he's a competitive person. I would say probably most people in like big business or sports, come on, it's a competitive thing. But he's so competitive. That's not just like with his job. He's very competitive with us. He has raised competitive kids. He would spend time, like free time with us, having us do things like play every sport imaginable, including like us being in boxing rings. So when we were a kid, if we were like having arguments with each other, he would literally borrow some wrestling outfits from the college he was at. We would have to wear them. Our living room would become like a ring, ding, ding, and we would literally box it out. Like even if we were 5, 6, 7, that shows his competitive nature. Wow. He'd be so competitive, he would totally cheat in board games against his own young children.
That was only Mork and Mindy. That was only Mork and Mindy.
Yes. But he was also, and this isn't even like negative to him, but he was also exciting and fun. And I know my kids and his other grandchildren think of him that way too. You know, like when he does have time to spend with you, he'll always make it an adventure somehow, you know, whether it's, I don't know, doing something unexpected. Like, for example, I can think of a couple of things. I remember when I was in college, I thought I didn't end up with this career, but I thought I might want to work in finance too. So I did an internship that my dad hooked me up with at Merrill Lynch. He was there at the time. And when I went to go visit there and like deciding before I was going, he's giving us a tour of like the trading floor and everything, and then taking us up to like the executive offices. And he literally drops to the floor on his belly and is like arm crawling across behind the desk to be like, we're not allowed to be here. Like everybody drop to the floor and follow me through. And we're like, what is happening? But we have things like that are always fun. Like we've crashed weddings. We're dancing on the dance floor with friends. So he always finds a way to break the rules just enough to make it like an adventure, something fun.
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Mission Belts. No holes, always fits. Isn't it time you join the mission? Welcome back to Sports Love Life with your host, Jamie King and Dr. Judy Ho.
Let me ask you this. I know doing the ESPN radio show with him, I get calls and requests and emails. Hey, could you ask Joe, or it starts like that, could you ask Coach, I've got this stock I've been working on, and what do you think about this? Could you please, if I took the time to answer and get all of the requests for stock tips, he would never have anything else to do but answer that. What about you? I know it's got to help you and your family, their siblings, of course, on the investment side, to have an expert there. But I'm sure you get hit up once in a while from family and friends outside saying, hey, you know, what did Joe think about this?
Well, that's funny. So I thought you were asking, do I get hit up to ask questions like that? No. No, I do not.
If you've got any, I'll take it. I'll take it. I can't get too much from him, but I'll take it from you if you have any. So,
although all of myself and my siblings have definitely been schooled on as much about like money and interest rates and saving and like how to, you know, he'll give very long lectures of lessons for us to learn. But those days are a little bit over since we're older now. But honestly, my world is that my husband is actually also a coach, and so our kids are really into sports. So our world is not so much finance, but in the sports. So to be honest, we get a lot of, can I get that BAM sweatshirt? Can I get tickets to go see a Coastal game? Can we he's more famous for that in my circle currently than any like financial stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Joe, of course, you authored the $26 billion deal with your team, Charles Schwab and TD Ameritrade. The only person I've ever met in my life, and maybe, as you said, I don't have a huge financial network of friends, but to use the word trillion and actually have that word in use, that you've used that word and actually meant it, is staggering to me. Can you talk about the blockbuster deals you've done? And to me, you're always as cool as the other side of the pillow. It never phases you, but these deals are so gargantuan to me. I know you have a team of people, you deflect the credit to them, but for you to oversee these type things, just absolutely amazing. Can you speak to that?
When I was on Wall
Street. Before you do, Dad, before you do, I have a perfect, I can interject something here, Jamie. So okay. You're saying that when he's doing these big deals, that my dad is cool as the other side of the pillow, which he is cool. But in the middle of a deal, that is not what is going on behind the scenes.
No.
It is like,
there you go. That's what I needed.
Intense.
Okay.
Like, do not come in this room. Like, this is what's happening now. Do you understand? It's pretty intense. He does get worked up.
Okay. Well, that's the info we needed. Go ahead, Coach.
So when I was just at Merrill for 17 years, and I became a reasonably senior guy at Merrill, and we had the dot-com boom in the 90s. And when that blew up, a lot of technology firms were really struggling. One of the ones struggling the most was Ameritrade. They were pretty much going out of business. But they did a global search. They offered me the senior Joe job. I wound up taking it. Now, one of the reasons why I took it is because the bad recession back then was between March 2000 and March 2003. I showed up there in the middle of it. And I was surprised that no one in the industry had begun consolidating the industry. So for our audience, when a world is blowing up, and there were 200 firms that had online brokerage presence at the time. Well, when people were not doing that, those firms were not doing particularly well. And then, in fact, they were probably going to go out of business, just like Ameritrade was. So I thought if we could get our act together, which we did, then perhaps we could begin consolidating the industry, where we would be buying other firms, which we did. So we led the industry consolidation. Now, the first one we did was not that big. It was only $156 million, but we were only worth $600 million at the time. If we screw up the deal, we're out of business. The second one we did was worth $1.15 billion. Well, we were worth $1.15 billion. If we screw up that deal, we're out of business. Now, subsequent to that, we did a few $1 billion. We did important deals, TD Waterhouse, for example, that were really important $1 billion deals, but we were no longer going out of business. Then ultimately, over time, I really always felt that, especially as commissions went to zero in the online world, that the way to be able, the best hedge against that were having a real asset base. And I was proud of everything we had done in Ameritrade. But I could not imagine something that would be better long-term for our clients, for our shareholders and our employees than literally doing something with Schwab. And probably we first started talking about that, by the way, back in 2006. And it probably took us a couple of years to be able to put it together. And one of these days, there's a good chance that TD Ameritrade name will go away. And I'm very, very sad for that. But when we closed the deal, the market cap of the combined company was $100 billion. When I started 19 years ago, our market cap in Ameritrade was $700 million. Our assets under management when we closed it was $7 trillion. There's your trillion, Jane. $7 trillion. When I started, we were $24 billion. So they were what we did. And frankly, each was successful. And I think in each case, what happens, a lot of times deals are not successful because the leaders put themselves ahead of their people. They don't communicate the way they should. And the reason why ours were, it was really, really about our clients, our shareholders, and our people. And we did everything we could to make sure that they were all treated with dignity and respect, which is also part of BAM leadership principle. So they're the reasons why we did what we did, because they were absolutely the right thing in the industry at that particular point in time. And there just happened to be consolidation.
All right. Question for you, Kimberly. How well do you know your dad? Would he, A, prefer to win a championship football game, or B, put together a blockbuster billion or $1 trillion deal? Which do you think and why?
I feel like those are two totally separate things, and it just depends what he's working on in the moment.
That's my girl.
It's oranges and apples.
If he had to choose, which one would he choose and why? Then I'm going to ask Joe, so I want to hear from you first.
I don't know that he really enjoyed one over the other. I guess if I had to choose, currently today, I would say football. I would say the championship because he's already done the other stuff. Not that he hasn't been very successful in the coaching, but I think also as he gets older, I think I think he gets a little softer. And I think that what's happening now is more of a focus on like the impact on others as opposed to reaching an actual goal. So given that, I'm going to say the championship.
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Snow and their outstanding teeth whitening systems. Go to trysnow.com. Jamie and Dr. Judy love their snow kits, and so will you.
You know what? I'm proud of you, Kim. I really am. That's exactly, I think, what I would have said. They're two different worlds. So again, go back to BAM, to your responsibility. So when my responsibility was the business world, that was my priority. There wasn't a question about it. When my responsibility was the coaching world, that was my priority. So at that moment in time, each of them stood on their own. And but I agree with Kim also. I mean, I'm wearing my coastal shirt, and the last 12 years of my life I've been associated with football. And it was just 2 years ago I stepped down having coached my 25th season. So today I would say definitely it's winning a major championship, especially if it's the national championship. That would be pretty cool.
Awesome. All right, Kim, your dad has a book in the offing. I'm hoping for a chapter, but anyway, a movie potentially. I think there's going to be a movie on your dad's life. Who plays your dad in this movie? Handsome guy, New York guy. Who plays Joe Moglia in the Joe Moglia story?
Like if George Clooney turns it down, you mean?
If George Clooney turned it down, if he wasn't available. That's your first choice, though. George Clooney. Nice.
Yeah, I see some resemblance there. No?
No, I'm with you.
Maybe Al Pacino seems a little old.
Wow. Going to the New York side of things. Joe, what do you say?
Robert De Niro. He's already in New York. I'm feeling New Yorker. I'm not sure. One of those.
There were three people that this is not in the offing now, but this has actually came up when I was actually still coaching at Coastal a few years ago. And there were three names brought to my attention. One was Dennis Quaid. The other one was Kevin Costner. And the other one was the guy that was in the Gladiator, Russell Crowe. Oh. So they were actually the three that were mentioned at the time. And frankly, I have a lot of respect for all three of those guys. And I think all three of them be good. Now, I think if you want to have somebody who really looks like me, he's got to be short, little, fat, little Italian dumpy guy. So like, we don't even want those guys. They're not even going to do that.
Danny DeVito?
Let me ask you this. New York. You're born, you're a New York guy.
Yep. If
I was to say to you, to the young Joe Moglia, 10, 12, 13-year-old kid, you're going to be a Division I head football coach, win championships, impact lives, and beyond that, have a great family and consolidate and sell billions of dollars worth of products and have a thriving company with untold success, would that young Joe Moglia have agreed, or would you, at that point, were you unsure of yourself? When did the direction aspect where you said, hey, we talked about stuttering and issues you've overcome and things that you've battled through your life to get where you are. What drove you there, and when did that drive start?
I think, Jamie, I've always had confidence in myself, and I've always believed in myself, and I've always tried to think things through. But when I was 12, 13, those things were, what you just said, were totally foreign to me. So I mentioned my dad was an Italian immigrant, never finished 8th grade, sold bananas and apples. My mom was an Irish immigrant. She never finished 10th grade. I was the oldest of 5. 7 of us lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in the Dyke Street section of New York City. Two of my very best friends I was with every day in grammar school got killed in high school. One died of a drug overdose. The other one was killed by the police robbing a liquor store. If I wasn't playing high school football, I'm going to be with the guy robbing a liquor store. Not a maybe. I'm going to be with them. So at the time, it was like in my neighborhood, I knew someone I could work in a fruit store. Guys either they either worked on the docks. Frankly, they worked on the docks, or they got in trouble, and had something to do with, something to do with the world that has some criminal element in it. Probably the more successful guys wound up being cops. Most of the guys never went to college, let alone finish college. So I think what differentiated things for me is when I went to Fordham Prep, all boys Catholic school in the Bronx, run by the Jesuits, on the same campus as Fordham University. They had a tremendous, one of the great part of that education was that a tremendous eclectic mix of guys that were going there. And for the first time, I really had access to people that whose fathers had graduated from college and had big jobs, maybe on Wall Street, maybe for AT&T, maybe for General Motors, wherever it might be. And that was the first time where I really recognized that the world is far more significant than my neighborhood or what my family had. Now, what I had that really supported me was a lot of people in my neighborhood didn't have both parents at home. I had both parents at home. We had love in the house. And we were a little dysfunctional. And my brother Johnny and I were always getting into fights. But we were united when it came to supporting each other. And that's been true my entire life. I would say it's 100% true for my children. Kim would do anything she could to support her brothers and sisters. And we would do that thing for each other. I think that's true in the Moglia family. That's very, very much true. And that is what would come from how I grew up the most with regard to that.
Great answer. Kim, when you look at your dad and all the lives he's impacted from a college football athlete and athletes in general, and people in general and finance, and you look at the impact overall, it's so huge. It's the only word I can think of, huge. You talk about your family as you all grew up and you were there every step of the way and seeing your dad every day. Can you talk to the impact he's had on these young men and all the different people that have come into his life? I know he's impacted me and all the people that have played for him and worked for him. Can you speak to the impact he's had on those people in his walk in terms of all the things he's done?
Sure. I think it's really evident, especially when, there is something like a big celebration or dad's receiving some type of award and the family is there in addition with either old players or current players. We always have people come up to us, first of all, just who shows up, people from like 40 years ago still showing up, remembering him, back when he was like 22 years old, just starting as an assistant coach himself. And people will always want to come up to us and tell us stories about how our dad impacted them. Or they'll send letters to him and he'll share them with us because we know how much it touches him to hear from those people. Those relationships, that's really what it's all about, and when dad talks about the impact, Fordham Prep had on him, it doesn't necessarily have to be your own father, right? He has worked as a coach for many people who may not have had a father figure around. You just have to be seen by somebody that sees that spark in you, that gives you that guidance, that really cares about your well-being. And it's so evident of how many people that he's touched in that way. And I speak for my siblings for sure when I say that's really the piece that makes us most proud.
Joe, when I look at your life and asking about your legacy, all the things you've done, the lives you've impacted in football, sports, finance, everyday life, the people that have come into your life, when you look at totality, everything you've done, I know it's hard to pick out one thing, but from a legacy standpoint, as Kim was talking about, the impact you've had on people, what do you take the most pride in, and what do you want people to say, hey, when they think of Joe Moglia, that's what they think of first?
I think, Jamie, that's actually an easy thing for me to answer, but because I've had two different careers in my personal life, there is no, I got 5 decades here to talk about. There's no one thing specifically. I think from a personal perspective, my legacy is with my children, and I could not be prouder of who they are. I couldn't be proud of who they are, and what they're doing with their lives and what they're doing with their children. So that's my legacy there as far as that goes. And that's my children. I've got 2 stepsons as well. I feel that about all of them. And I couldn't be prouder of that. But then in the business world, it's kind of the legacy. The legacy continues to build depending on what's going on, what you have going on. So my Wall Street career ended with the deal with Schwab and TD Ameritrade. So I certainly want Schwab to continue to do very, very well. And hopefully, because of the merger that they've done or the acquisition that they want to do in Ameritrade, they're going to be able to do that. And they're already well ahead of the curve because of that. But I think from a football perspective, certainly it's Coastal Carolina. And I couldn't be prouder. I had recruited Jamie Chadwell to come and join me. He was a very, very successful head coach at the FCS level and Division II level. He's I think the only FCS coach is actually has a winning record against me. That's why I felt I had to hire him. But I'm couldn't be prouder of what Jamie has done and his staff, Chad Staggs, and just I couldn't be prouder. And the players, where they have gone and where they are today, finishing last year 14th in the country at the FBS level. By the way, it's ahead of Nebraska, ahead of Michigan State, ahead of Michigan, ahead of LSU, ahead of UCLA, ahead of Southern Cal. This is Coastal Carolina. I don't know how many people in the world would have predicted something like that to happen. So so my legacy with regards to my coaching is very, very much at Coastal, and specifically what our current football team is, Jamie and his staff and our players. And I couldn't be prouder of that either.
That was a special moment for the show, like an Oprah moment. I felt kind of channel my inner Oprah to get some tears there. And Kim, you can see how much, the love he has for you guys. To see how choked up he got just talking about your success and how much he loves all of you. It just touched my heart to see that. And, it's one of those things where, you just look at your dad and all the caring that he has and the love and the pride he has for all of you. Can you speak to that and what it means to you to have, as I asked Mike Singletary, Hall of Fame linebacker, and his wife, I said, he played for the Chicago Bears. I said, is he more teddy bear or Chicago Bear? So I'm going to ask you the same thing. We just saw a softer side of your dad and the emotion came out. Can you speak to him in terms of the love he has for the family and what you guys feel for him in return?
The Sports Love Life Show is brought to you by Cremo and their fine line of skin creams, body washes, colognes, beard products, shave creams, and more. Cremo, astonishingly superior.
So it's really interesting because my siblings and I have talked recently, meaning in the past, let's say 5 years or so, about how we have watched Dad go from Chicago to Teddy in the past few years. Now, I will say, growing up, both existed, but I think we saw the stronger part of him and less of the mushy in the past. And I understand now the reason why was because he was being strict because it was so important to him that we succeeded. And by succeeded, I mean that, that we were all stayed healthy, that we made good decisions, that we didn't get into trouble, that we respected ourselves, that we bammed it up basically, and ended up being productive members of society, as is the wish of any parent. So I think that the reason why we're seeing more teddy bear dad in the past few years is that we're all old enough now where he can see that we have reached that. Right. And so I think he's less anxious about teaching us lessons and is more present and just appreciating the time with us. So there's a lot more moments where it's just really about the connection and the love and enjoying each other's company than it is like going over my report card or teaching us what we did wrong about this or all of that. So I think that's probably the reason. But we're a very blessed family to all be so connected. We're all very different personalities and we live in different places. But we are, just like Dad described, of the 7 of them, growing up on Dyckman Street. We are that way. We are a very strong unit. We would all be there for any of us, no matter what. And we all have so much pride and love for us all. So we're really blessed.
That's awesome. And I'm going to put on my Chuck Woolery hat for 1 minute, love connection style. I'm going to ask you, Kim, arguably one of the most eligible bachelors in America. And he's got the George Clooney look. He has a little time on his hands now when he's not doing billion-dollar deals. The lady that captures his heart, who is she? And for anyone out there watching that's interested in your dad, and trust me, there are a ton out there, what are your thoughts about that woman? What is the makeup of this woman that would be that particular partner that you may say, that's the one for dad?
I can easily answer this.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, we're on the hunt for this woman. We're looking forward to meeting her.
This could be Kim. We could partner on our own show, right?
Let's
find that person. Yeah,
that would be so fun.
Yeah,
I want to be on that show. I want to be on that. We could definitely do something like that. Would be so fun. I think this woman is got to be a very special woman. I think she should be somebody who is open-minded. Who is worldly in a way, but also very grounded. She's got to be down to earth. She's got to be intelligent, kind-hearted, and funny. It would be great if she could cook. She must love ice cream. What else? Somebody athletic would be good. Obviously, it's an athletic family.
Joe, I hate to say it, but she's given us quite a bit of thought. She's got this narrowed
down
for you.
Well, my daughters have my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
This could be a reality show, Coach, that we find the love for Joe and get Kimberly, your daughters. We could put it all together, and I think it could be a top.
Have a little dating show.
That would be exactly.
That would be so fun.
For the love of a Joe. There you go.
For the love of Joe.
We're in. All right, Coach. Now I'm going to ask you. You heard from your daughter your thoughts on that potential Mrs. Right out there. What would you be looking for?
I think, Jamie, for me, I think it's reasonably simple, but it's not easy to necessarily find that person. I think, what I really, really would cherish in my life is somebody that brings peace to my soul, truly brings peace to my soul. And Kim did a good job describing somebody physically and their specific strengths, but peace to my soul, kind of joy to my heart, and literally is able to lift my spirits. And if the person's able to do that, then I'm a pretty grateful, solid guy. My world will be pretty complete as far as that goes. Of course, one of the things she has to be able to adapt well to, my family and, and my loved ones in my life, because they're clearly, utmost importance to me. But I think that's what I need more than anything.
And as she said, you're not Guy Fieri in the kitchen, so she better cook. We know that too. I do want to ask you this, Kim. You're a mom now, and of course, your family and everybody else that has dealt with in our final moments here with the coronavirus and the variant coming now, and the last year and a half to 2 years has been absolutely miserable for most everyone. And every time we think there's an end in sight, something else happens. Can you talk about it from your perspective, what you value most, what's most important, what you've learned through this time, and what keeps you going and looking to a positive future for your kids, for your family? Can you speak to that?
Well, sure. I think that the coronavirus has obviously been a nightmare for the world. But I think, like anything, there are positives and negatives. Mm-hmm. And if I were to pull positives out of this experience, I would say that we've all had more time with ourselves and with our family. Now, that's not always like if things aren't going well there, that can make things a little difficult. But I think it, for me personally, has been really a blessing. I think a lot of people are juggling a lot of balls, and this made us take a moment to just exhale. And for me, it helped me prioritize my life moving forward post-COVID, to not spend time doing things that don't matter or that don't bring any joy or worth to our lives. Like I'm cutting that stuff out more and really keeping it on the things that are fulfilling. So I would say that that's a positive, and that moving forward, that's a piece I hope we can hold on to as life hopefully goes back very soon. And as it gets very quick again, and it seems like there's no time for anything again, I hope we're able to still keep the things that are most dear to us closer, and to let go of all the stuff that really doesn't matter.
Very well said. Coach, your thoughts? You're always a beacon of positivity. Of course, we've been down a very rough road. Of course, there's things going on now in Afghanistan. There's things all over the world, problems everywhere, and COVID. How do we stay positive through these uncertain times and look to a brighter day?
Number one, I have so much respect for what Kim said, because I could not believe more in that. For the first time, we've had a real chunk of time, I mean, a year plus, where if we come out of that and we don't have a better feel for who we are, that's a real incredible opportunity lost. And I know that what is important to Kim and her family, and certainly people in my family and in my world, I would hope that every one of them will look at it that way. I think in terms of the different things that are going on in the world today, I kind of go back to the leadership principle. Remember, the leadership principle, the critical line of leadership principle, well, there's only 4 lines, so they're all pretty critical, but always treat others with dignity and respect. I think what's happened in the world today is that there is too much animosity, people too much concerned about different types of inequalities. But the issue I've got is everybody blames on everybody else. So when I first went to Ameritrade, when our family first moved to Ameritrade, we just had 9/11. And I never saw our country pull together more than I saw then, over a period of a year or two. Over the span of the last 5 years or so, I've never seen our country more divided than I have in my lifetime. And again, people, I recognize there are inequalities. I recognize there are issues. I recognize there are problems. But if you treat other people the way you want to be treated yourself, if you treat others with dignity and respect, and you take responsibility for what's going on with you and your life, all these things come into play.
Right.
And our leaders need to be able to create that as a standard for people to be able to step up on and live on, and be able to really, really find themselves accountable for. So if you're treating others with dignity and respect, and you're truly accountable for your own actions, all the problems and issues we've got really kind of in the world start to go away. Because everybody's got that type of attitude. It starts to grow. Inequality starts to go away. The isms start to go away. So I really believe, I feel pretty strongly about that.
Final 2 questions. First, Kim, to the world, he is Mr. Finance and a championship winning coach. To you, he's always been dad. For those folks watching, listening tonight, sum him up in as many words as you want. Tell us about your dad and what you want everyone to know about him before we leave tonight.
Okay. Wow. It's a tall, that's a tall order, but okay. If I were to describe, just like throwing out adjectives that describe my dad, I would say strong, motivated, like beyond motivated, like weirdly motivated, fair, unique. One thing I think is really a cool thing about him is that the personality of, like, my father's personality that I recall as of my youngest memory, you know, of a child, and all through growing up, whether he was like in football or finance, and today, because I'm 48, so over almost 50 years, is really the exact same. Like, there might be things that have changed, of course, like he's no longer living with just one bathroom. He's got more bathrooms. Right. He likes to eat at a nicer restaurant sometimes, but even not always. He'll still get just a slice. Overall, like the person that knew him at Fordham Prep is really having dinner with him today and seeing the exact same person. Like, it's just not changed in any way.
Joe from the neighborhood.
Yeah. That I think is really cool. But to me, like you said, he's just my dad. He's just a person that I know will always be here for me, no matter what I need, no matter what busy meeting he's in. He'll take my call. He will help me with a problem, not by solving it, by helping me figure out how to solve it on my own. And I just love him to death. He's my dad.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well said. Joe, final word. If people look at you just in football and finance, they're missing the story, because the impact you've had on so many thousands of young men and people you've come in contact with in the business world as well is so insurmountable. What do you want people to know about you beyond the football, beyond the finance, as a takeaway tonight in terms of learning more about you? What is important that people know about Joe Moglia?
I think I do believe that in my personal life, in my professional life, I think one of the characteristics a leader has to have is love, and love, commitment to well-being of others. And I do believe in my life, I have done everything I could for my loved ones or the people I'm responsible for, to put them first. I really do believe I've done that. So I thought about others as opposed to myself first. Secondly, I couldn't be prouder in terms of what my daughter just said. And Jamie, I don't know if you're wrapping up the show yet, but I appreciate you having both my daughter and I on, and I would have loved for any one of my children to be on, but Kim, I could not have been prouder of you, and this will be a great memory for us.
Teddy bear.
Oh, that's awesome. And as I said, Coach, we had to add with the two of us some beauty to the program tonight. So
we did.
Thank goodness Kim said she would make the show. Listen,
thank you.
The hour has flown by. I think Kim and I are going to partner on your dating show, but I can't thank both of you enough. This has been a very big event tonight. We appreciate you both coming on. Kim, thank you so much. And Joe, as always, I think about you and all the impact you've had on me and the people that you come in contact with. Thank you both so very much. And of course, we can't say thank you enough for appearing on the Sports Love Life show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie, thank you. And I love you, Kim.
I love you too, Dad.
All right. And we're going to end on that note. Of course, if you want to learn more about Joe Moglia, simply go to his website, outstanding website, at Moglia.com, Moglia.com. We'll be right back. You've been watching Sports Love and Life.
The Sports Love Life show is brought to you by Dr. Paul Ross and his amazing foot cream. Amazing doctor, amazing cream. Give your feet the very best with Dr. Ross's amazing foot cream.